When we get back to our life, we see it as one of running as fast as we can away from love's truth. Gil Scott Heron. The sacred science of shamanic psychosocial forensic anthropologic alchemy. To be awake is to transform. I wrote this. Well, I started writing this in '69, but I wrote this piece here in 2015. I find that we are in a predicament that humanity has been in for most of its existence. What Gil Scott Heron said, when we get back to our life, we see it as one of running away as fast as we can away from love's truth. These images are from around Mount Mitchell in North Carolina, near Asheville. And this is the headwaters of the Toe and French Broad, up behind Mount Mitchell, where Forest Road, I think it's 277, it goes down to Little Switzerland. Anyway, this was shown to me by my teacher, Chief Tutrees, and this is from the 1970s. And that area is the most biodiverse. And because of Duke Power's coal-fired power plants, the heavy metals, and specifically the acid rain, is killed all this. It's very similar to the West Coast up near Washington, Oregon, Canada, Alaska. That was one of the most biodiverse and rich areas on the planet. But after Fukushima, those beaches that were full of starfish and every kind of sea anemone, it's just rocks and dirt. Everything has died. So, you look at, and I became aware of the environmental issues back in the 60s because I was being pruned to be a rocket scientist for the Pope. And so I was part of a number of, even when I was younger, in my 16, 17, 18 years, I was part of special research groups that were in places like Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission and universities like NYU and the New School. And this is a magazine that you don't get off the rack. You had to be on a list. And it basically stated in the 50s, 60s, and 70s what was going on. And in these magazines and others, like Proceedings and all of these entities had access to information that most people don't. Except these people knew what was going on. I lived with them in '77. This is an Aboriginal tribe in Australia. There's my little dingo dog trying to take me into a higher consciousness. Anyway, so I've been it's now October something, and all of this is dead, long gone. The waters are just muddied. Look how fresh. Look how beautiful. Anyway, since 1976, 30% of all life on Earth has been extinguished. Every day, 100, almost 200 species go extinct. And these folk, like other indigenous folk, live on the concept of, well, our relations. Everyone is together. Now here's pictures of Asheville, North Carolina. This is like 4 p.m. in the wintertime. There's nobody there because up until 1996, Asheville, that's when Asheville finished paying its depression debt. And people would lend it money, and that's why it's the hipster jungle now. Now this is Tortola. This is a beach I lived on. I could still be there today. But I came back because I knew someone had to step up for this. Otherwise, they'd build a hotel on it. This is back in the early 80s when I ran nightclubs and restaurants, and they were like, right there is Frank Zappa. Right there is Michael Savage. He's Man Ray's nephew. We went over to Paris and lived with Man Ray. Here's Archie. He was my teacher at Trinity in Dublin. He was a person well respected. He had shown that there were pyramids in Ireland. And they've dug them up. And there's Christine Barton, one of the smartest humans on Earth. You know, when you go look at a Pixar movie and they have that little logo of the lamp, that was her PhD thesis. She was the first human being to render 3 dimensions in a digital foray. This is my good friend. I had a lot of friends who died of cancers from AIDS. And this is Andy McCann. He was a great, he was on everyone's, he was a studio musician. Loved playing. This is when I lived in Ithaca, New York. Here's my volunteer fire coat. Here's my little bungalow house. And here is David, the grandson of Grandfather David. And he's now the chief of the Iroquois Nation. And here's his wife, who was a great herbalist and a great woman of the woods, a great crone. And we always had ceremony. And we are doing ceremony. This is Ithaca, New York. This is when Ithaca, and here's rainbow gatherings I help facilitate. This is Pennsylvania in early 80s. And this whole forest was dead. This forest was one of the first places that oil was discovered. And when you went into the deep forest, you found railroad tracks and old derricks. This is in Pennsylvania. This is a guy I went to Catholic. You know, we were at a seminary to be priests, and he became one. And then this guy's like Jesus. He went to the poorest people who were suffering the most, and he, no collar, no, Here's Garrick Beck, my good friend from way back when. His parents started the Living Theater. All these kids are now in their 40s. It's pretty amazing. Here's Kitty Village. Here's a guy totally naked amongst little kids, and no one was upset, This guy is Tiom. He fought in World War II. He and this is his son, who was a computer scientist at Wang in Massachusetts, and this guy just went around the world doing good after he killed so many people in World War II. And he stayed in the military all the way to Vietnam. He was in the Second World War, he was in the Korean War, he was in hundreds of little skirmishes because he was, in what is now known as the Delta Force. And this is his girlfriend, Candy. She was 27 here. And we facilitated, we were the scouts. We picked the spots where this guy, he was a scout with us, and he was crippled from the Vietnam War. And we took him everywhere, or he took himself everywhere. And this guy, this is amazing. This guy is my doppelganger. He has my same name. He was a local 3 IBEW electrician in San Francisco. And he would come to rainbow gatherings and find me. And I'd always have my sisters, because I'd be the guy setting it up. So I was like the first guy there. And he'd always, hoist my girlfriends away. And he always took the ones that, I was glad. I mean, she was a great person, but she wanted me to save her life, and we all have to save our own lives. Now, this girl, she was a real witch. I mean, real witch. She was, she could wield some power. One time we were having, and this picture was taken just a moment after it happened. We had an argument. I found this site and we were preparing it. She and I were the only ones. She was picking the herbs and doing ceremony. Anyway, she wanted me to do something. And I said, hey, I'm busy. And so she said, no, you come here and do this. And I said, no, I don't know. And so she walked away, and a lightning bolt came out of the sky and didn't hit a tree, hit the ground about 100 yards from where I was. And I had been standing there when we had the little argument. But, she didn't kill me because, after lightning bolt, she came over and gave me a kiss. Oh, so this is Calm. And he's a doctor. He's a doctor. He's a doctor. They were all medics in Vietnam. And other wars, and they just left and started being doctors to people who were poor and needed doctoring. And I was the shrink. I was the spiritual healer. And here was my healing temple. And here's Tione and Candy. So here's the site of the Rainbow Gathering in Ithaca. And this is a guy named Owl. We were both owls together. And here's, I knocked this guy out. This guy, he had AIDS, and he wasn't doing too good. And so I realigned his immune system. He lived another 10 years because I got to him before it got too much, and there's his boyfriend. And this is Pennsylvania again. And we sang, all we are asking is give peace a chance for 2 hours. It's pretty amazing. And this was North Carolina of Joyce Kilner. Here's Garrick again. And here was Maine Kitchen. And here are some road boys. Now, this guy was a Sikh priest. And here we are in Ireland. And here is the area. This is called Glendore. This is actually bring a carry over here. And this is the West Coast. And here's an ancient Celtic stone. And you can see all the stones that were cleared away. And this is a 16,000-year-old, what is known as a beehive. It goes down many, many layers. And these were rooms, and they would throw the bones out the windows. And when the garbage kind of got over the windows, they would just build it up, 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 up. So it went up many floors. Ireland. And so here, this picture, a little road going up the mountain to the Old Crone. So I could tell you where that is, but once you got up there, couldn't find it, in the 80s. And that's where the Old Crone lived, on the back side of that hill. That road goes up there, and that road was pretty amazing because it was super steep, kind of went up, and it was only big enough for a car, or not even a car, a cart. And if you were going up that road and somebody came the other way, somebody was going to have to back up. So this is a Magnum photographer buddy of mine who came and visited me, and here's the burger bar that's on the Ring of Kerry, just out there in the middle of the beach, nowhere. And here is a group of thespians, and that was there's Kelly. She's a really great woman, and she was, the XO. She made sure everything worked. And my buddy, I remember telling you the story of Igo. There's Igo. He and I went to seminary together, and he was a little guy that every priest was trying to bugger, and I just protected him. And so what this was Dublin's 2500th birthday, and they got the government of the city to pay them, and these guys acted out famous Dubliners for a whole year. And here were kids who I took care of. I ran this daycare center in Glendora, and these kids had, never gone 20 miles from their neighborhood. So I took them out there, and this is Skibbereen, Alley and Skibbereen. And the thing about the west coast of Ireland is that the Gulf of Mexico goes against it. So it's like being in Mexico. There's palm trees. And so here is the little harbor of Glendora, the town I lived in. And here was a Celtic circle, very, very spiritual, very, very strong. And, those Celtic circles, the Romans, Catholic Church basically dumped garbage or let cows poop on them. So here is the Shoreham nuclear power plant in Long Island. That was a done deal when I showed up, but it was built by the mob. I mean, I had worked in nuclear power in the early 70s. I had studied alternative technologies in the 60s, and I knew this was, gonna kill everyone. So I got together with the grandmas who were keeping it going, and this was every weekend. We had music. This is like February, it's real cold, and we were out there, making sure the community knew. When I started working on this was the day we started Long Island Life Community. I just had 2 guys with me, and I was totally non-prepared. All I had was a roll of plastic. It was sleeting. It was Valentine's Day. And from this day on, for 5 years, stayed in front of the plant 24/7. That was our commitment. And here is Dr. Guff Whitman, this guy right here. He invented nuclear health physics. He was at NYU. I went to see him. And he and I went to every police department, and he explained that they were going to be the first to die. Here was my TV show on cable TV in Manhattan called Potato Wolf. And we had it was like Saturday Night Live, but I did a lot of things like this. Here's a nuclear physicist from Brookhaven. This is Esther Pank, who was one of the grandmas who started with me, the Stop Shorm campaign, and this is this girl, Marge Harrison. Um, Basically, was our legal person. She had no experience. She actually went to the Supreme Court 5 times and won. Us building a solar oven, you know. And every weekend we'd have this many people. You know, and what was truly amazing was that people came from all over America who experienced nuclear accidents. But I mean, all of this. So we were the Tea Party before the Tea Party. And all of these people here were citizens from all over America who lived near a nuclear facility that had a really bad day, and they were exposed. And all these people got cancer from being exposed to nuclear accidents. You don't even hear that. There's Doc again. Where is he? Right? And I got the nickname Doc because we would go talk, and people say, oh yeah, wow, you're amazing. And he goes, oh no, this guy, he pointed to me, he's amazing. This guy's got, he knows more than I do. And I was in the Manhattan Project. Here is, what are these girls? Joan Jett. This was her backup band. And they came and would always, a couple of those girls lived in Long Island, so whenever they could, they would be by our side. And we made it. I mean, the media for the first 2 or 3 years would not even cover us, but we became so present, and we educated the community so much that everyone wanted to know. So they came out, even though they were told not to by their corporate leadership. Now, this is Brazil. I think I told you the stories of the Nazis, the boys from Brazil. Here's my girlfriend. This guy was the reincarnation of Jimi Hendrix and Jesus Christ, and he lived in a cave that when the tide came in, the water would cover up the hole, and there were bats and spiders. That's it. And he had, I don't know where he got it, but he had Sears furniture that was like covered up in plastic, like your aunt would have. And here is Buzios, on the wrong side of town of Buzios. This is where I lived. And when I tell you the story of Madame, here she is, she owned everything and everyone. I mean, she reached out and got me from New York City to come and build her a nightclub. And I just made a gigantic art piece. And there is the bar. There's me and my surgeon. Her father ran a place. If you wanted to change your person, who you were, you'd go to this hospital. That's why Buzios was there. And these girls over here were, their father were, Nazis. I mean, Germans. I mean, these girls were Aryan girls, but they were my friends. You know? And here is Madame's lawyer. That's what he looked like. And again, there's my girlfriend. And she loved me because everybody was screwing each other, and it was like a petri dish of sexually commuted disease. I didn't do any of that, And she one day came up to me and said, you're going to be my boyfriend. I said, why is that? She goes, well, you're not gay, and you are true blue, and you haven't had sex with anyone, and everyone wants to have sex with you because you're Rick of Rick's Bar. You run the coolest club, and you're going to take me out of here. So, that's why she was my girlfriend. And there she is again. And there's her sister. Maggie May, that song Maggie May, there she is. And there's the madam. That's me at 42. Not bad for 42. There's Jesus, reincarnated Jesus. And this is Art for the People, an art organization in New York, and I helped start up a bunch of them. And so we just had art everywhere. So here we had a tent, and I keep talking about taking it on the road, and here is us taking it on the road. We made a tent, and here, this is an abandoned building. We had our theater, the Alchemical Theater. Carlo Montiani was our theater. And there's Marissa, patron saint. This girl is amazing. She still is amazing. There's Frank Zappa at one of our zombie nightclubs. Here's an abandoned building I moved in. This is about, I don't know, a week after I moved in. And when I moved in, everything looked like that. It was just burnt. The whole floor was burnt. But I, scraped it and broomed it out. And here is Carrie. No, this is Suzanne. She and I ran Art for the People. And again, so I just moved in and lived in an abandoned building until I fixed it up. Here I am teaching people how to wire their own homes. Here's Carlos with the theater. He was a heroin addict at this time. And we took over 500 buildings. No, we took over 50 buildings and housed 500 families. And here's everybody. We were a collective, and we had a good time here. Jane Fire. I should have married this woman. She was really rich. She really loved me. But she wanted to have kids, and I wasn't quite sure about that. Here's me doing one of my performance pieces. I would do them in squash courts, and I'd have my gigantic Tesla coil, and I would discharge billions of volts. And this girl, I don't know if you ever seen the TV show Battling Robots. She was both these girls were my electrical apprentices. When I had my business in New York, I only hired women. There's Jane. She was so sweet. And there's Patty, another sweetie. And here's me being Mr. Businessman. And that's Louis Tropia, who started CBGBs. This is the godfather of punk. This guy, he worked for A&M Records, and then he worked for Virgin Atlantic. And here is my artwork. This is what I used to do with chalk. Me and Keith Haring, we'd go over in the subways. The walls were the kind of tile that you could just hose off, and where they had areas for advertisements, posters, they kind of have a frame. And when they didn't have an advertisement, they would just have black paper. So we'd go with white chalk and do this. Keith got very famous for that. Here's an art show I did, and I would do them in abandoned buildings all everywhere. And here's us breaking into one of our abandoned buildings. And what we do, we'd go and scout a building. We'd find it that was in good shape, had a good roof, might have had a fire, might have been messed up, and the city would break them up. So we would get a, fire metal coil door here, and we'd make a hole, and we'd put the door in and concrete it up, and we'd have a mail slot, and we'd mail us mail, and then we would start fixing it up. And so that burned out place that I showed you, this is 3 weeks after, and I'm putting together an art show for the NEA. And here, so I had entertainment, and this girl was part of the NEA, and they really loved what we were doing. And so here was a painting I started, and I let all the bureaucrats, it was like paint by numbers. So here's more of here's George. George is a very famous beat artist / actor / theater director. Theater for the New City, it was his thing. And he was on, Law and Order a lot. And so here's me, armed. Because I had a master electrician's license, I would just lift the, grids off of transformers in the street and hook straight up into them and light up our theater. And I got the city to pay for it. They said, fine, here's Marissa having her little baby. And I helped because I was learned how to deliver babies. Old crone, I help her do that. This is in an abandoned building. And this woman, she was Teresa Gomez Gonzalez, but she was Irish and Puerto Rican. And she was a police officer in the New York City Housing Authority, and she had been an assassin for the CIA and was a Marine, and this is in the 80s. This girl was hard ass. And she was my partner. She wore the uniform, carried the gun, had the radio. Me, I was just me, and I would go into the situation and try and defuse it. And if I could, I would. If not, she would. And people were scared of her. Here's Richard Heyman. We started the Ear In together, but it was really Richard's gig. Meaning, we just showed up together and I helped. Whatever he couldn't do, I took care of, And I had a place to stay for a good 10 years and a place to do stuff. And we, the first year or two, it had the second oldest liquor license in New York. So we went down and just got it. Cost us $50. And by the time we came back, the mob was there cleaning up the place and stacking, the closet with booze. There's Judy Ripka, good friend. And this woman, she had an art gallery in the Lower East Side. She basically made the Lower East Side into the art scene, just like the guy who owned OK Harris made Soho. And these guys were three amazing Irish poets. And this guy actually had a Nobel Prize, and these guys had the Booker Prize, or what it was. Allen Ginsberg. Ginsberg. You never heard the Ginsberg story? So when I was 14, I was already pretty good at lecture. I started working for the stalls when I was 9. And by the time I was 11, I could go off and fix things. And we mostly worked for real estate people. Nice, Marissa. Oh, lovely, Marissa. And this is one of my nightclubs in an abandoned building, white tablecloths, because I had connects with the mob, and they, I'd call up Mike Finelli, and he would do anything I wanted because I was his electrician, and I always was on time, on budget, and never took any. And it was, he thought I was great because I was a straight shooter. And so anyway, Ginsberg. There I am at 14. And and my dad, I don't like it, you can leave. And I got tired of that. And this one real estate guy said, hey, Al, let me show you something. Here's a building I just got. I want to fix it up. You help me fix it up, you can have this apartment for free. So I did. And I was in an apartment that wasn't in the basement, but it was like a few feet below the sidewalk. So the windows, I watched everyone's kneecaps go by. And there was a staircase in the middle of my apartment that went up to the ceiling, and it was boarded up. And I had like just a toilet and a sink, and it was, but I had this amazing garden because this building had been a nunnery, and it was just amazing. So anyway, long story short, one day, knock, 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 I opened the door, and there's this guy with big bushy curly hair, big bushy black beard, and black glasses. And he said, hi, I'm your upstairs neighbor, Alan, and I can tell you like to cook, and come on upstairs. And so I went upstairs, and his apartment was where the kitchen, and so the kitchen was still there. It had a Garland stove, everything stainless steel. It was beautiful, and it had a bathroom like you couldn't believe. It was like tiled, and a shower, unbelievable. So he said, there, I've looked in your window, and there's a staircase right up to this apartment. Why don't we take up the boards on the floor, and we'll be roommates? And I said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And so Allen Ginsberg, for a number of years, was my roommate. Now, I was going to prep school at this time. So, my prep school was, we started October 1st and we got out April 1st because we went to school 24/7. We never went home. We were there. We went to school on Sundays. So, so when I was away, I was away, but he kept paying the rent and sweeping the hallways, and every Friday we would have, and that's what my nightclubs grew out of. He and I had these dinners that were salons of the avant-garde. I told you the story about the girls who came from Ireland, and here was the old crone's granddaughter and her best friend. I told you that story about what you should and shouldn't do. And there's my buddy David Boyle. Here's our theater. And this is all in abandoned buildings. And this lady died. She was a great poet. Both these people were well-known poets who both died of AIDS. Because in the 70s it was cool to shoot heroin. And they caught up to them. So here's the abandoned building. Here's Carrie Shea, who was kind of my boss in the housing authority. And here is Judith Molina, one of the founders of the Living Theater. She did it with her husband, Julian Beck. And Garrick is my good buddy, and that was his mom. And this is one of our parties, right? And this is at the abandoned building, but this is a continuation of the beat avant-garde scene that Allen Ginsberg and I did these dinner parties. I had pictures of all of that, but my dad threw them all away. I had pictures of the Fillmore East. I had pictures of hanging out with all the guys, Grateful Dead, Jimi Hendrix, Airplane, you name it. Here's the building we took over, right? And we put 20 families in. And then a developer bought it out from underneath him and turned it into co-ops. Sandro Nannini. Sandro's a good example. Now, he's a guy who did some really great stuff, but it was all about him. And he made a career out of it, and he became rich. And at the end of the day, it's all about him. Now, Dave and I, it was all about the community. Same with Marissa. Now, they kept at it, so they got a career out of it. Me, I moved on and did other things. So I left this because this is kind of what the whole building looked like when we first went in and looked at it. Here's another of the No Nuke scene that I helped put together. This guy is a very famous Puerto Rican. He started the Nuevo Rican Cafe. He was right. And here's Haley. This lady, guess how old she is? She's 80 in this picture. She was born. Her father was one of the people. Haley's Comet. That's named after her. Here's our circus, right? And we were LGBT before LGBT. Here's Maggie May. Here's Jared, who was cousin of Donna Ann McAdams. Jared Fahey. He came and lived with me for a year. He came from England. And here's these girls this was my girlfriend at the time. And we had a TV show, a variety show that she basically ran. This is a guy. He's one of the. This was a group of mercenaries, assassins, and they wanted to stop being it, so they came, and I helped them have a different life. This guy came from Russia, Mossad, MI6. This is a party, and these are guys, mercenary murderers. And we had this nightclub called, I took it from Ben Franklin. It was called the Hellfire Club. Anyway, it was loads of fun. And And here is Lynn, and she was a great restaurateur in New York. She had the Miracle Grill. Bobby Flav got her his first job at her restaurant. He's famous because of her. And she is now feeding most of the kids in New York City public schools on food that they grow themselves in gardens. Let's see. Hey, buddy. So these are all pretty famous people back from the 80s. Doing a little photo book.
Huh?
Doing a little photo book.
The old pictures, eh?
Yeah, from the 80s.
Huh?
From the 80s. So did you grow up here?
Huh?
Did you grow up here?
Yeah.
What'd you do all those years?
The what?
What did you do here all those years?
Well, here, I was born and raised out in the third, they call it.
Uh-huh.
And I just worked on the farm till I got old enough I leave the county, went to Pennsylvania, worked up there till I turned 18. And I went to Lenore, North Carolina, worked 30 years.
What'd you do in Lenore?
Huh?
What'd you do in Lenore?
Furniture.
Furniture, yeah. So you're a furniture maker. So did you?
I built furniture, made furniture.
Did you turn or did you assemble?
I done both.
You did it all. You did it all. You still making furniture?
I ship, run a bandsaw, I run a whip saw, and sander, edger.
So what do you do now?
I'm retired.
So you get a little bit of Social Security and a little bit of benefits, and that's about it?
I draw Social Security. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, me too. I live on...
I can't qualify for nothing else.
Really? All those years of working, and that's it?
Huh?
All those years of working, and that's all you get?
Yeah, I paid in all my life, I worked.
Uh-huh.
That Medicaid,
Yeah.
You don't even qualify. Why was he used to paying it in?
Right.
When I was growing up and working, every once in a while I would go and ask my boss what that Medicare was taking out.
Right.
$3 or $4 every week.
Yeah.
He says that's going to help you when you retire.
Yep, your health
I
care.
got a set of it.
Yep.
She wants you to talk a little quieter, she can't hear that. She wants you to talk just a little quieter, she can't hear it.
Peace, my friend. Okay, here's a TV show we did on, this is called White Collar Criminals Between the Lines. And between the lines were the barcode. And there's here both of my girlfriends. And Jane was a great musician and a stand-up comedian. And she was a writer and a stand-up comedian. And even though I didn't date them at the same time, I dated them very close. And there was a vicious bone between them. They loved each other, so much fun together. I put this show together, the idea, and the three of us would write the script, and I would pull things out of the Wall Street Journal, and we would go from there. And this was done in 1983, and the idea was this was in the near future in a dystopian society where basically everyone, it was after the corporate wars, and there were no nation states left, just corporations. And barcodes were not even being used. But I knew about them because I went to school with a guy whose daddy invented them, and so I knew what was coming down. And there's Paul Felix Montez being the ghost of what's his name? Albert Einstein. And this girl, she was really an amazing girlfriend of mine. She was a Ford model, and she had issues, and I did everything I could to try and make her happy. And she'd be, it was manic depressive, so she'd be really depressed or really excited and just amazing. And she and I produced this TV show, and we went around to like the kitchen and No Say No and Sixth Sense Gallery, which was my gallery, and when we'd have a show, we'd go live, just like I'm going live now, but we did it on cable TV. And this is a Rio, and here's Becky Hollander, and I was, re-channeling her chi. And so the real thing about all of these things, these were art and culture, and I was doing them because the only way, well, first of all, I was doing it because of women like this. I had all these women in my life who were great artists, and I was just pushing them forward so they could be the best. And this is Beth B., and we got to know each other really well. And when she had another boyfriend, we'd be together. We were like default buddies, and we were always best of friends. And that's what you need to have a real good intimacy, is best of friends, people that trust you, know you. So all of this were things in abandoned buildings. Oh, here's this kid. Here's Dog Boy. This is a kid I got off the streets of New York, and he was on his way to kill someone. Well, if you were to go on the internet and Google collaborative artist projects and Google Potato Wolf, yeah, you'd see those TV shows. And, you'd see my TV shows, Between the Lines, Tesla Speaks, all the, informative interviews, all that. And Howard Grant was like the mobster version of Donald Trump. And he was really smart and really fun, but pretty ruthless. But he was one of my best friends, and he was, he loved me because I always had his back, and I didn't, people, how can you stand that guy? He's so terrible. Well, he wasn't. He was just a mobster, It's like Tony Soprano. Anyway, so I taught this guy, he slept in one of my lofts for a year, and he slept, I gave him a room of his own. Nope, he slept at the bottom of my bed on the carpet because he wanted to protect me. That's why his nickname was Dog Boy. And anyone got too close, he would just clock them. And that's why. So here, this guy right here was a singular guy who brought modern art to America. That's Billy Kluver. And this is White Columns, which was across the street from, it was in the UPS building. And Richard Heyman and I introduced him to Billy, and Billy said, oh, I don't know, let's do this. So he had the clout, he knew the people, we made it happen. This guy was the Mucky Muck New York Times critic, and what was her name? She was one of my assistants, and she became big time in the NEA, and this is when she went from holding a screwdriver and fixing things with me to getting into the art scene. And this is, an art show I did in an abandoned school. It was a school up in Brownsville, and it was, half of it looked like someone nuked it, the other half was unbelievably beautiful. So all this stuff is, if you go look at ABC No Rio, collaborative artist projects, if you go look at PS1, if you go look at the Knitting Factory, Franklin Furnace, the kitchen, these were all things that I was involved with, and I helped make it happen. I was never the guy. I was always the guy who made it happen. Never the guy who took the credit. Never the guy who, stood up in front. If I had to, I would, but mostly I didn't. And so this was a really great art piece. This woman who was a long distance swimmer, this is an abandoned building in a basement. And we made it look like she was, living under the sea, and she was swimming. It was like pretty amazing. Let's see. This guy, his name was Ralston Farina. He was the person who coined the phrase of performance art. He was brilliant. And there's Stephanie, another sweetie. Her father was a multi-zillionaire. She came from Switzerland. And he came one day and said, you're the only man who would be good for my little girl. You need to marry her. I'll give you $1 million if you marry her. And I had just kind of gotten divorced from Donna. And, being offered that was a bit much. Here's my godson, Mike. You're back.
Are you from Johnson County?
Yeah, I'm from here.
Huh?
I'm from here.
What's your name?
Al.
Alan.
Al, yeah.
Mine's James.
James. Pleasure,
Glad to meet
James. Pleasure. Yep. But I've lived everywhere. Not just here, but everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I've lived in this all my life.
Well, it's not a bad county. The bad thing about, not bad thing, the disappointing thing about this county is that it doesn't step up for the people who live here.
Yeah, they won't step up on nothing.
No.
That's a
Yes.
bad thing.
But part of that is because we let that happen. We're supposed to.
I understand a lot of things, about the county. I know they got to do some certain things. And do
Yeah,
some.
but it's run by rich white guys.
No,
That's who runs this county.
but
But that's every place in America. That's everywhere in America. We're not really
no.
a democracy. No. You and I are like slaves. We slaved our whole life, and what do we get for it, Not much. Now, I made sure I had a good time.
I'm 73 years old.
I'm right behind you. I'm 70. I'm 70.
Are you? I'm 73.
You're a little older. Yeah, we're in the same. Yep, we've been around.
Have you worked in this county?
Not really.
Not really?
No, I always, I left because you can't make money here. I left and I was an electrician.
You had to make a living.
Right. So I'm, like I said, I lived everywhere. And,
I picked beans, cut bagger,
did you ever cut,
farm till I got old enough to
did you cut
get out on a
tobacco?
public job.
Did you cut tobacco? Did you cut tobacco?
Yeah. Cut it, hung it, graded it.
I remember when this place was almost, there was more vegetables growing here than
Oh,
anything.
man. We used to have a big fire up here in the fire ground. They call it fire ground.
Yeah.
But it's a football field. now.
Yeah.
We have a bean festival every year.
I remember
There's a
that.
big carnival
Yeah.
come in up
Yeah.
here. Parade.
Yep.
Man, it was a booming.
Yep. Now, no more.
No more.
No more.
We can't even get a thing in here for the kids.
Yep. And now it's sad. The kids have no idea what it was.
We had a 380. We had drive-in.
Yep. Well, look at Butler. It's underwater. I had a neighbor who was, he was mostly on the water, right? He was always on his boat.
Yeah.
And when the TVA would lower the lake, he would take me out and we'd go, and he'd say, "That's where I lived," because you could see downtown underwater. He said, "That's where it's like pretty bizarre where the lake is."
I remember when a lot of these streets were still wood.
Yeah. Now it's,
Wooden streets.
yep, I know. It's really sad. So you have any kids, James?
Huh?
Do you have any kids? Children? Do you have any children?
Yeah, I got 3 kids and 5 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren.
Are they here?
Well, one of my granddaughters in her two kids, they live in Gray, Gray, Kansas.
Yeah, yeah.
The rest of my
Around here.
lives, all, two of my kids lives in Johnson County, one lives in Carter County.
Right.
My youngest. He bought him a home down there.
Well, buddy, I'm gonna move on.